Yeah. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Totem. Today we brought you guys a very special guest. He's the GOP United States House of Representative, going for District 8. What's up, Ryan? How you doing today, man?
Hi, Monico. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with both of you and, being able to get my message out there to your viewers. I'm really glad to be here.
Awesome. We're excited to have you on here.
Likewise, I'm really happy to kind of reach out to your base and, kind of understand for people to see my platform, what I'm about, what I stand for, principles and values. And, I'm more than happy to answer all the stuff you guys have for me today.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason we wanted to have you on today, so people can get like a little bit more of a personal, one-on-one, kind of get to know you a little better.
Yeah.
Instead of just everything they just see on social media or whatever.
And it's important. I want to make it clear to the voters of District 8, which is a new district here in Colorado, what I stand for, what I'm about. And, I'm sincere, I'm authentic, I'm transparent. I'm not like those regular typical politicians, right? I consider myself a cool politician and someone that actually wants to work for us, like people like us, our friends, our family, our neighbors, the people that really run this country.
So the new district, if I remember correctly, they barely set that up a couple weeks ago. The new districts for the next, was it 10 years?
10 years, that's correct. So for those that don't know, every 10 years there's a census done, obviously with accordance to the population of each state. And that's how we appropriate congressional districts. Now, not Senate. Every state has guaranteed 2 senators. But every state is not guaranteed equal U.S. House of Reps. So because of the last population growth over the 10 years here in Colorado, we have gotten an additional 8th district. Now, this 8th district is focused on where there has been more significant population growth, which has been along the Front Range, Greeley, most of Weld County, and Adams County, stretching down the I-25 corridor all the way to Thornton, Commerce City, part of Westminster, Federal Heights. So it's a competitive district. It's an open seat, and it's about roughly over 730,000 for each district. So we're looking at that.
Nice. That's pretty good. So how do you feel about the new redistricting that they came up with? Because if I understand correctly, Morgan County used to be also in District 8?
District 4.
District 4.
Yes. And Morgan County is still in 4. So they pretty much chipped all of Weld County population-wise to the new district. But Morgan County, along with the Eastern Plains and kind of going down south, is District 4, which is represented by incumbent Ken Buck. And he's been in office since 2015.
Okay. And once you get in office, and once you get the seat and stuff, how many years is a person there?
So the United States House of Representatives, per the U.S. Constitution, they are guaranteed a 2-year term. So every 2 years, all 435 seats are up for re-election. Now in the Senate, there's 3 different classes: Class 1, Class 2, Class 3. So usually about a third of the senators are up for re-election every 2 years.
So they don't do all 435 at the same time. They kind of a third of them at a time.
For Senate.
Yeah.
But for House of Representatives, which are 435, they're up for re-election every 2 years.
Oh, okay. Dang. So
go ahead.
I was gonna say does that number grow depending on the census? Because with the new redistricting, the population growing, does that number also increase over time?
So they made an amendment where it's fixed, at least in the House of Representatives, to no more than 435. So that means that states will lose representatives if they see a significant decline in population, and other states will get those seats. So they're reappropriated, but it's fixed at 435.
So Colorado got another one. So there's another state that lost one?
So
what state, the states that people are kind of moving out of?
Exactly. So California lost one. New York lost 1 or 2. Florida has gained 1. I think Texas has gained 2. So those seats also kind of shape our electoral college, if you know what that is. So for the presidential election, which means instead of 9 electoral votes in Colorado, next presidential election, Colorado will have 10 electoral votes. So that means we also get a bigger say in who we get to pick as our president.
So like, I know like during this past election, like one of the big topics was like if they should just do like the popular vote instead of doing an electoral college. Like what's your opinion on like that? Do you or why should we keep doing the electoral college?
See, what people don't understand about the Electoral College is I think it's one of the most brilliant mechanisms that we have to date. You see, our founders, with through much debate and deliberation, right? You look at back then, and most of the population, I think, was Virginia. So what the founders were really thinking of is saying, well, if we go by popular vote, not only will it arouse public passions, but it'll be Virginia, at least at that time, picking the president every single time. And what you've seen is as we've grown as a country, right, we've expanded westward, the westward expansion. And, California has the most population, New York as well. So if you go to a popular vote, California and New York will decide the president every single time because that's where most of the population is segregated at. And I would like the people who do not like the Electoral College to think about the people who live in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, those places that are what I consider swing. So sometimes they go back and forth. They're not traditionally red. They're not traditionally blue. They go back and forth. So if we go by popular vote, it's pretty much going to have California and places like New York pick the president every single time. And I don't think that's fair. Now, I understand people's one person, one vote population, but our population is completely dispersed. It's not actually, compounded evenly throughout the country. So that most of those people, for the most part, vote Democratic. So you can only assume that we'll always have a Democratic president to lead us. And I have nothing wrong with Democrats for the most part.
Do you think something like that's kind of like because you're Republican on the Republican side? Do you think people can kind of see that and be like, well, for us it's good, but like you're saying for us, like, are you talking more like just to have an even thing or because you're kind of Republican?
It's not about partisan. For the most part, people tend to align their views with someone that they can identify with. But places like California and New York have been overwhelmingly Democratic. Their state legislatures, their leaders for the most part are Democratic. And it amazes me that people continue to vote for them because you see that in these places there's crime that is record high, even more so in recent years. There's high taxes. There's heavy regulation. And what you see is, especially in California, has the 8th largest economy in the world. Now you got to think about it, right? If entertainment was not there, right, Hollywood and Silicon Valley,
there you go.
Then I don't think their economy would be as big. But what you've realized is these people, high income earners, and studies show that if you make more money, you're more likely to vote Democratic. But, these heavy burdens and regulations become like a norm. It's become like a culture for them, expecting, But looking past the politics, I'm not talking about Republican, that it disadvantages Republican. I would say if we went to a popular vote, then it would focus solely on Los Angeles County, which is the biggest county in the country, and New York City. And that's where these people who want to be president would campaign on. And they would ignore those places, like I said, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida, and pretty much have them without a voice.
They'll forget that they're going for the whole country and they're pretty much just focused on 2 places.
Exactly.
Instead of 50.
Just focus on the needs of just these 2 places and not like
screw everybody else, we just need to get these and kind of forget.
Yeah, or like all the farmers and stuff that are like out here in the plains and stuff, just completely forget about them.
Exactly. Now, not everybody thinks like California, and in fact, people are fleeing, right? Especially with COVID, they're fleeing high taxes, and they're leaving that state, which is why they've lost a congressional seat, and we've picked up a congressional seat here in Colorado in the last 10 years. People are fleeing these regulations and these heavy burdens and high taxes to go somewhere where they're able to have more of their money, to have more freedom, if you will. Not government intervention.
Do you think that was in the last, they do the census every 10 years, but do you think that was actually in the last 10 years or maybe in the last 2 years?
I would more say last 10 years. I think that people are starting to wake up, right? I'm not talking about wokeism. I'm talking about people who are actually opening their eyes and seeing that a lot of these stuff that they're voting for and these policies are hurting them, their families, their finances, and they don't want to be a part of that anymore. Now they're fleeing other places, and a lot of influx of people are coming here to Colorado. And I'm not trying to attack any people coming here at all. In fact, I welcome them. But I will say this. Stop voting for the things that you ran away from, because Colorado is becoming traditionally more blue per se, but these people are coming from all over, and I have nothing against California or the people there, but I feel like they're continuing to bring that stuff that they ran away from here.
Do you think Colorado's going more blue, or say per se? We can be a little more specific, like Boulder, Fort Collins, Denver is going more blue, because I don't think necessarily Colorado, like everybody out, we're over here more on the plains side, and it ain't really much blue over here,
Right.
And because like the influx of people tend to go and just stay at those like different places instead of coming out here into the plains.
Denver is a business city, right? So you have a lot of these people moving into the Denver metro area. So yes, you are correct in the fact that it's mostly Boulder, Denver, and Fort Collins. I have hope for Fort Collins. I have hope for even perhaps Denver. But a lot of the things that they're dealing with right now, homelessness, crime,
to the roof,
cost of living, these are issues that have been pretty much put in place because of these policies, these progressive policies that have made Colorado, for the most part, traditionally more blue. Now, we're not completely blue. When it comes to our taxes and fees, we're more fiscally, we're more center right when it comes to that. And you've seen that with Tabor.
Yeah, on that a little bit, you were saying remember how you were saying about the presidential, if it was like New York and LA. So is it kind of like the same thing for, say for Colorado, like the government, governor, they just want to stay kind of like Boulder, like the Boulder, Denver, Fort Collins area, and kind of forget about the rest of Colorado. That was actually concentrating in the area they live in, pretty much.
Because that's where most of the vote is coming
Exactly.
from.
Most of the population is segregated around Denver and Boulder, and to some degree Fort Collins. And you have most of the people who make these policies for us live in those areas. And I think it disappropriates people like us who live outside of that radius, that 50-mile radius per se. Fort Morgan, Greeley, Highlands Ranch, Colorado Springs, right? Yeah. You're from Colorado Springs. And in many ways, Colorado Springs kind of offsets Denver. They pretty much have about the same population-ish, which is why I still have hope for this state. And a lot of Colorado people who have been here their entire lives are leaving this state because they've given up hope. And, they pretty much see Colorado as a lost cause. And I don't necessarily think that. I think it starts with having leaders on the other side of the aisle being authentic and seeing what they have to offer to resonate a message with the people of not only where we live, but of Denver and of Boulder. We can win them over.
So on that, there's 7 districts now. There's 8. So the population kind of, it's hard to make it exactly equal. But do they have like one congressman per every
700,000.
Oh, that's what
730,000.
That was my question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if a guy's like in charge of the whole, where all the people are, but it's kind of divided evenly then around the state.
Yes,
okay,
it is.
That's what I've like seen on some of the maps and stuff. Like out in the plains and stuff, there's like a wide square miles like covered by like one person, but then that's because it's like
there's not as much population there. Is that why?
Right. So like the Eastern Plains, and then the Western Slope, they pretty much have the population scattered around. It's not segregated like Denver, which is why the districts, as you get more towards the center of Colorado, are smaller because of the heavy weight of population.
Okay. So it's pretty good for like a person that doesn't know too much. Like for all of us that doesn't know too much, you kind of look at a map. If they got a smaller area, that's where more population. It's more concentrated than in a bigger area. That's kind of like a good rule of thumb, kind of I guess, to know where the heavy population's at.
Yeah. And they kind of broke up Denver a little bit with this new map. I think it pours into some of District 6. And I don't know, like the two specifics of it. The map is still under review, which will be finalized by the Colorado State Supreme Court. in December. And as of right now, I don't see anything that the court will do to send it back to the commission to amend or to modify. I think the map that they were submitted will be our permanent map for the next 10 years.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. And then on a lot of that, you said people have been like coming here to Colorado, leaving other states to come here because there's more people. What do you think that does to the market?
I mean, for us, I think it's very good because we are known for our tourism, right? So the Rocky Mountains and, just so much of the stuff to do outdoors. I'm not questioning that because it helps us in the long run. But what it does hurt for the most part is our housing, right? And housing is one of the very big issues that people want to see addressed from all over the political spectrum. It affects every single one of us.
Like housing, like price housing, or what housing are you talking?
Price housing.
Okay.
We've seen an increase in the cost of living here, and we've seen it in the last 10 years go up, and more so because of that influx, right? As you get more people in here, it's the law of supply and demand. If people are demanding, then you can increase your prices because the demand is still going to continue to grow. Whereas if you have high supply but there's no demand, prices are going to go down because they want to get rid of this. They want to get rid of their inventory. And you're seeing that with our housing market right now, where despite this COVID recession that's pretty much happened to our entire country, the housing market is continuing to boom. It's now in 2008, that wasn't the case, right? The stock markets crashed, the housing market crashed, everything went down. But now this time around, what you're seeing is the economy is, it's not in good shape right now, but the housing market is still continuing to grow.
But eventually something has to give, no? Or what do you think?
It's like a bubble, right? So the bubble continues to grow and then eventually it's going to pop.
It eventually can go so big. How big do you think it'll get before it gets?
I think, probably not for another few more years, unless the Fed intervenes and raises rates, at which time then I predict another recession.
What do you think would make it pop?
The Fed, the government more intervening and, increasing rates. And right now with inflation, right? And inflation is a hot thing right now. You're seeing, obviously, the prices continue to go up, which weakens your dollar. And therefore, you have less purchasing power for that dollar.
So in reality, you don't have a dollar, guys. You guys have 75 cents.
Exactly.
That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yes.
So hopefully they don't be like, hey, you had 10 grand in the bank, now you only have 7 grand.
And that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Like in 2008 when the housing market crashed, it like a lot of people back then felt like it was like a big crash, and people are saying that it was like that this time around that I think it was supposed to be like 2020 that it was going to crash even worse, but because of the pandemic and
because the government probably
the government gave us a bunch of money, the $2,000 checks. Thanks Biden.
Thanks, Uncle Joe.
I mean, it's not really anything. I mean, you literally are stolen by the government legally. They steal money from your paychecks every time.
Yeah,
and then
it has to come from somewhere, yeah.
And then you get taxed on whatever you buy, whether it's a car or groceries, a sales tax. And then you have to pay, your property taxes every year.
Which keep going up.
And then if you have some sort of inheritance, you got to get taxed on that. And then when you die, the death tax, right? You get taxed on that. It's tax upon tax upon tax upon tax.
Where does that lead?
It leads to pretty much people being hurt in the long run, right?
Because you see, like you're saying, everything increases, but I mean, I really haven't seen wages increase. I mean, they've gone up, but not compared to the price that's gone up,
Right.
Of the, say, groceries or
one of the big ones
whatever.
is just the cost of tuition for colleges. Like comparing it back to the 1960s, 1970s, it's nowhere near what it is today.
Well, and you got to think about it. What are the two most government intervened industries?
Probably has to be college because you get your FAFSA and everything through there.
Well, you're close. It's education and healthcare. They have the most government regulation. They have the most government intervention. And it's the two biggest topics that people talk about are education and healthcare. And it's because government is involved. If you look at a free market approach, right? If you look at competition, those things can fix themselves on their own. I'm not saying completely have 100% because there has to be some sort of safety net, right? Government serves the proper role of government is to protect our rights. So when there's some sort of violation of our rights, that's where government intervenes, right? But what you're seeing is government pretty much having to infiltrate every aspect of our lives, down to the T of what we can and cannot do. And that involves education and healthcare.
And what's your position? Do you think that's a good thing for government to be involved all the way down to the T?
No, I don't. I consider them like poison ivy. Everything they touch, they destroy for the most part. You know, we were more capitalistic 100 years ago than we are now. Capitalism. It's pretty much, it's not perfect, but it's the best socioeconomic system to lift more, and that has been proven to lift more people out of poverty, and has incentivized innovation.
What, the capitalism?
Capitalism.
Okay. All right.
To encourage innovation and growth. And when you think about it, it's because of capitalism that poor people today, even though, you know, like poverty is another different subject, but people who were poverty 100 years ago were far less fortunate than the people who are poor now, what we consider poor. Our poverty people are getting better. Now, I'm not saying poverty is a good thing. I'm not. But what I'm saying is poor people today under capitalism are doing better than people who were poor 100 years ago.
Yeah, because I think the poverty kind of like what you go. I mean, yeah, yes, we're in the U.S., but like here, it's inhumane to have somebody without, the winter's coming up, without a heater, without, or in the summer without AC. Other countries, they don't have that. You know, they don't even have that. That's a luxury. So I mean, next time you think you're poor, you're not really that poor. Compared to who? Compared to the guy living in the mansion? Maybe, you know. But I mean, that's where the capitalism jumps in. You know, that guy did something probably in his life to do that, and it helps for innovation to make society better. Because if there's no incentive, like, oh, make this car, you know, make this car better. Well, what's in it for me? Oh, nothing. Well, they're not gonna make it better, you know. But they're like, hey, there can be some higher profit margins. They put a little bit more effort to do stuff. Don't you think?
Yeah. And innovation is a big thing. We have to allow for innovation and for growth. You know, this is how we're able to do new products and come up with new medicines and, you know, strive to have better technology. It's incredible. Innovation and competition are beautiful things. I mean, you guys took a chance at starting your own business, but capitalism allowed for you to do that. Under a government that had no capitalism, you wouldn't even have had a chance.
But this country also, I mean, that gives opportunities. We try to see the bad things about it, but I mean, it gives us a lot of opportunities. I mean, we go back to compared to like other places that you're oppressed, you know. And
you said it yourself, opportunities. You see an opportunity to make something better, and through capitalism, you're able to pursue it.
Exactly.
You know, and be part of that market that actually strives for making things better.
It's for society, like for everybody, like around us. It's, you know, facilitate our lives and everything, you know.
Well, not only just for them, but for you guys, you know, to make your guys' lives better. And, you know, it's hard. It's not easy being your own boss because, look, you take it with you as a business owner, okay? You don't leave it at your job. You don't clock in. You don't clock out. You don't answer to a supervisor. You're your own boss, but you take it with you. At your home, you're your own boss, and with that is also the responsibility and the burden of being able to make sure you are able to secure that income to make ends meet.
That's why entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. Like
a lot of people like to see the Instagram and everything on the posts and the highlights of it, but they all think it's cool, but then they don't want to see what it actually takes to get there.
It's
and all the work that goes behind the scenes.
It's a lot of hard work. And look, there's these calls about people wanting to redistribute the wealth. You don't need to redistribute the wealth. You can create and generate new wealth because it all starts here in your mind through innovation, through ideas, through passion and perseverance. To allow for that to happen, if you manifest it, if you're able to grow it, you yourself will create new wealth. You don't have to take it from somebody. I mean, I don't know how you would like it if you guys had enough money and then the government came and said, you're making too much money, we're going to give it to somebody that's not working.
Yeah, of course. Like,
how would that make you feel? That
they think it's
they're
bullshit.
rewarding people for your hard work because they just choose not to do anything. Because they think it's wrong to see billionaires and millionaires when they overlook their own potential and capacity to do something.
Maybe not even that far. I mean, I think you're in the top 1% if you're making like not even six figures, I think, isn't it? Or 150 or something like that.
There's a lot of billionaires,
But
and
like in the top 1%, I mean, you don't even have to be a millionaire. I think you're like maybe 100K, 150K. I don't know the exact number, but it's not that you're not that far off. Like,
you're kind of like in the middle, like high middle class / like high class, but I wouldn't consider it the 1%.
The middle class, the most dangerous. Just for you guys, just so you guys know.
Well, and we talk about the middle class, but we don't talk about the working class. We don't. These are people like me that work paycheck to paycheck, and understand the cost of living, of healthcare, of education.
A question on that: they live paycheck to paycheck because they want to, and they've created that lifestyle for themselves, you think? Or because they're like that? Because we can, like you said, we can go through education, educate ourselves better, but we choose not to. Or what do you think?
I think for the most part, some people do like what they do. And you kind of have to look that just because you make a little bit of money doesn't mean that it's a good job, right? These are jobs that we need. I started working at McDonald's and like other things where, I did live paycheck to paycheck. I was going to school at the time. But if people actually want to get outside of that and get more money, then pursue that opportunity that capitalism gives you to, like what you guys are doing, start a business or work somewhere else, do something. And it's through skills. You guys had the skills to do this. Right, the capacity to do it.
But
let's incentivize that.
Sharpen the blade every day. I mean, it's not like I read a book, I'm good. No, you gotta go grab another book or go do some other stuff. It's not just like it's like hunger. You didn't just eat and then you're good. No, you gotta keep eating every day. If not, you're gonna get hungry. You gotta keep doing something every day.
Yep.
And that's the problem I think a lot of people see, and they. How would he say? They kind of confuse that idea, like, oh, I did this, and now I'm good. And like, no, that's not how it works.
They become complacent where
exactly.
they're at.
You said it yourself, complacent. We shouldn't allow for that. If we allow people to reach their full potential, just imagine the innovation and the creations and the technology that we can bring to this country.
On that a little bit, what would be, say like to better like innovation, education, what are some solutions that you see like now running for District 8? What are some solutions you think that you can bring out and for the state,
I think a lot of it has to do with the easing of regulations. We have too much red tape, right? And I think that's why a lot of people kind of stem away from even starting a business, because they know the repercussions and the laws and regulations that they have to follow. This country doesn't need more laws. This country needs to enforce the laws we already have, fix the ones that are broken, and get rid of the ones that are useless. If we allow people to have more autonomy to thrive, to not have to worry about that red tape, and for them to reach their full potential, right? Welfare is another thing, that kind of ties into it. If you incentivize people for welfare, they're not going to do anything. But if you incentivize that innovation for people to go out and do something and contribute to society, to their families, to themselves, for the country, then that will fix itself, because we're generating wealth. We're creating more of it. We're not taking it from someone and giving it to somebody that doesn't deserve it. We're building upon that. We're making it better.
That's good. I like what you said about the laws. Like, you gotta, what was that again?
We don't need more laws. We need to enforce the ones we have, fix the ones that are broken, and get rid of the ones that are unnecessary.
I haven't heard that, and I think that's good. Like, we just try to blame stuff on everything. You gotta like see the bigger picture on stuff like that.
Yeah. What I was gonna say was when you're saying like incentivize like people who are actually trying to go out there and make stuff work. That was like one of the big topics too, like during this pandemic, like when they like increased the unemployment and stuff that people were getting, it basically incentivized people to just stay home and do nothing instead of, because there people at home saying nothing on unemployment were making more than the minimum wage workers that were like still essential workers and like actually going out there and working. I feel like instead of like them incentivizing people to stay home, it should have been the other way around and like
exactly
incentivize people who are like the essential businesses and people who are actually going out there and doing something.
Well, look, government has absolutely no business telling you that you have to close because you're not essential. Because what it comes down to is every single business is essential.
They're saying you're not important. Pretty much that's what they said. That essential is like another word for important. You're not important, you know.
And that's what it is. And you know what? COVID didn't wipe out these small businesses. None of it was. It was government. Government came in and told you had to stay home. You couldn't open your business. And me that I couldn't go to my place of worship to worship and exercise my freedom of religion. Of faith is what I like to say. And it's wrong. These people overstepped and they know it. And now it's only going to get worse because now it's not shutdowns. It's either you get the vaccine or starve or die. Or what you've seen recently, right, with the woman here in Colorado that made national news. They refused a kidney transplant or something like that because she didn't have the vaccine. Exactly. I mean, is that not immoral? Is that not a violation of her rights? And they're not going to care because, look, they have all the power. And they're drunk on it. And they're only going to continue to exercise it and get worse. But we, as the American people, we have to say, look, enough is enough. You know, this has got to stop. But if we don't do anything about it, then nothing is going to change. And if we continue to elect the same people, of course nothing else is going to change. It's going to be the status quo, business as usual, and nothing's ever going to get done.
So do you think some of that was like, because I mean, there was some sort of way that you had to control, like say you had COVID to control it. What do you think would have been a better option to do stuff like that? Because you had to control, you can't get too much people together. And I mean, I see both sides of it, but what do you think would have been a better way to control that?
What I would have done
businesses,
if I was in the government at that time, is stop all travel to and from the United States, bring our people home, shut down everything for a month, give everybody $10,000. Because look, these people, they want to talk about the tax cuts a few years ago, that was breadcrumbs. These stimulus were breadcrumbs. They were. Because look, they could have given every single one of us $10,000 and they still would have been fine. Okay? We spent $6 trillion on COVID relief. A lot of that money hasn't even been used yet. Right? And if we would have just shut everything down, told people to stay home, freeze rent, okay, given the $10,000 stimulus, we would have not had any outbreaks. And when you look at it, instead of all of these months, over a year of 45 days to curb the spread, we wouldn't have had these businesses shut down permanently. We would have had the 1 month where everybody was isolated at home, where people had the COVID for 2 weeks, and it's gone. It's gone. That's what I would have done.
What do you think about the they said you're saying on the COVID relief, how they had it for businesses? You know, they'd give businesses money out and stuff. But it looks like the corporate business is the one that got the money because I didn't see any corporate business shut down, you know, and the small businesses are the ones that closed. So shouldn't it have been the other way around? Yeah.
I mean, look at how quick the PPP, which is what it's called, you know, loans went out quick, depleted. And there was people that still needed more. And they didn't get the relief they needed. Instead, it went to all these corporations. And you know what? You got to admit, right? These people in Congress get corporate donations and they have their donors and all these people that have wealth. Of course, they're going to back their own. But what they don't realize is our small businesses are our backbone to this country. And if you keep the small businesses open, you keep people working. You don't have these people sitting at home. You don't have high unemployment rates. You continue to have business that's generating revenue, that's generating growth, not only at the national level, but at the local level, you know, our local economies. It's just as important as our state and federal. But instead, what did they do? Corporations, because they have a lot of people and they generate a lot of money. And no, it's not. And I'm sick of all these corporations continuing to get subsidies and aid when it should have gone towards small businesses.
What's your stance on the vaccine and like so many businesses now and like places requiring you to have the vaccine and showing your like vaccine passport, how they call it now? Because I think like, yes, like the vaccine might be good for some people who are like higher risk, like older people or people who have like comorbidities and stuff like that. But like for the general population that's like healthy, I feel like it shouldn't be a necessity for them to get it if they choose not to.
And you said it right there, choose. I'm all for giving people a choice. I'm not here to force people to take the vaccine. I'm pro-vaccine, but I'm pro-choice. I'm not saying don't take the vaccine. Look, if you want the vaccine, take the vaccine. If you don't want the vaccine, you shouldn't be forced to take the vaccine. It's that simple. But I do understand private companies having a say in their own rules and regulations. I'm not against that because they're privately owned. They're not publicly owned. Okay. But when you're over here trying to force these people to take a vaccine in the public sector, and many times it interferes with their religious beliefs, then I think that's where a line needs to be drawn. Make it clear that, there's exemptions, right? Just like there's for polio and, chicken pox and all these other vaccines that we have, there's exemptions. Why don't we have exemptions for that? And it surprises me because, look, the same people who are making you take the vaccine are the ones who said a year ago that they would not take the Trump vaccine because it was under Trump. And now, fast forward months later, they want you to take it. And these are the same people that were saying we're completely skeptical of it. And look, like I said, I'm pro-vaccine, but I'm also pro-choice. Don't force people to do it.
It reminds me of, I think it's Andrew Wiggins. He's an NBA basketball player who plays for the Warriors. He requested for him to have like a religious exemption, and they choose not to give it to him. What's
happening with Kyrie too? He's saying he's just, like, I'm not doing it. So
that too.
He's one of the best players in the NBA, not wanting to do it, And it's like, what's gonna give him or the what's gonna happen?
And look, I'm not here to spread conspiracy theories. I'm not. Thankfully we have a couple vaccines of us to choose from that have been proving if we're able to give it to people who really need it, right? Our elderly, those people that have underlying medical conditions. I mean, those are the people I would strongly encourage to get it, right? We want these people to live. Now, to your point about the vaccine, I think it's just funny that after Trump left office, these people stopped counting COVID deaths. I mean, remember, like when everything first started, they were blaming Trump for all of these deaths. Are they blaming Biden for all of these deaths that are happening right now? And we're seeing an uptick in these cases, in these outbreaks. Where's the responsibility? It's completely hypocritical that just because they don't like that man, that they're going to attack him, but they're not going to attack this leader who told us he had a plan, which obviously isn't working, who told us he would unite, which he's just dividing, and said that he would make it better for us, build back better, when he's just tearing us down even worse. And the only thing he's building back better is our enemies, right? The Taliban in China. I mean, it's wrong. Where's the accountability in this administration?
Well, his plan to get us out of Afghanistan kind of went to shit.
Kind of backfired. I kind of have a question on that, like on the whole everything you're talking about. If you see that, like you personally, you see that like all this is happening with the government and all this stuff, what makes you still want to go into go as a candidate?
Well, I feel like we should take a step back and just like, why did you even like choose to run as a candidate?
Because like we're discussing all this stuff and you're just like, sounds like it's a shit show. So it's like, you know what I mean? What makes you want to go into this? You know what you're going into. You're educated on all this stuff. You know what's gonna, So what's
my entry into politics was something that if you would have asked me 8 years ago alone and told me if I was going to be a candidate or thinking about running, I would have laughed at your face. I would have thought there's no way in hell I would ever consider about running. And then I saw that after the 2016 election, I paid more attention, right? There came a man who, a billionaire, gave up his lifestyle, went in at it pretty much alone against all odds, against 16 other candidates, against the establishment, against the media, against Wall Street, against Hollywood. All of these people were against him. And look, I'm not going to defend everything he said, but I will defend most of his policies, which have worked. And if what he did, what these people did, if it was warranted, what they did to him, if it was warranted, then I would see no reason with what they did. But what I saw was what they were doing to him was wrong. Not only wrong, it was illegal, it was obstruction, and it was pretty much fighting him every step of the way. And he just wanted to help our country, make it better. And I thought enough was enough. We're electing these career politicians, the same kind of people, right? Harvard degrees and lawyers, and they come from money. And what people need to realize is we're continuing to elect the same people. And you have to ask yourselves, these politicians are in fact a reflection of our culture. Now ask yourselves, are you truly accepting and approving of the people that you have representing for you, for your families, for your country, for your district? No, we're not. And you know what? He's right. He's not a politician, and he beat all of them. And the people are tired of the same BS. We are. And we need outsiders, people like us, who understand that these policies and laws that they make affect us at the local, municipality, state level. And we need people who actually go in there, who have our interests at heart, and not caving into special interests and money. These people go in there and they make money, millions of dollars off of $174,000 in their salary, right? That's their salary. But they walk out and they leave Congress as millionaires. Why?
How does that happen?
And it surprised
And
me.
then they keep getting paid for the years to come.
Oh, yeah. You know, like the pensions and the benefits that come with it. I mean, of course, they don't want to give up their luxurious lifestyles. But I think these people have lost their way. They have. And that's why I decided to study Congress after the 2016 election, because I saw what they were doing to Trump was wrong. And like I said, I'm not defending everything he said, because if he would have just kept his mouth shut on a lot of things, I think he would have won re-election. In fact, he was cruising his way to re-election before COVID. Our economy was hot. Our unemployment was record low. Our enemies feared us. We had at least a better, stable Middle East. And you know what? He was making our allies hold themselves accountable, paying their fair share. And these globalists, what I like to say, they didn't like that. They didn't like a man who they couldn't predict, they couldn't control, you know, they couldn't bribe, because he had his own money. And they hated him for that. That's why they hated him.
On that, what you're talking about, like, they couldn't control him, they couldn't do it. What do you kind of mean with, like, they? Like, who's
They, the establishment, right? You know, these people have their candidate. And like I'm telling you, when he went against 16 other Republican candidates, there was establishment people in there. Jeb Bush, perfect example of that, right? His donors, I mean, he came from the Bush family. His dad was president, his brother was president, and he thought he had a shot, you know? That he was a governor of Florida, you know? And these people obviously do not want someone in office that they know they can't control, that they can't predict. And not only them, but our allies and these globalists, right? China and Russia, perfect example of it. You know, they knew that they had to be careful with this man, because if they did something wrong, he'd come after them. And that's why, at least during his term, you know, like everything was not as crazy as it is right now with China and North Korea and Russia, because they knew. They did. And that's why they hated him.
So do you think it's better kind of like to be feared, you think?
There's that Machiavellianism believes it's far better to be feared than loved. And in some ways I agree to that, but you also want to have the support of the people. Because if they fear you and the first opportunity they get to overthrow you, they'll do it. Why? Out of fear. And what you see right now with COVID,
I feel like that's
fear.
kind of what happened. I feel like that's kind of what happened. Maybe I'm not too much. I'm not pro any, like, both sides, but I feel like that's kind of what happened. Like they didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump.
And that's exactly right. Because look, I never seen these businesses, right, like Facebook and even Modelo and all these places telling you to go vote. Remember seeing all those commercials?
Everywhere.
Vote. Everywhere. It was everywhere. And I've never seen that in the 2016 election, the 2012 election, 2008. Nowhere. And enthusiasm and record turnout was high.
So do you kind of think they maybe kind of beat him in his own game, because 2016 he kind of took over with social media. Like, yeah, he was saying some stuff that was not good, but I mean, it's still propaganda for him. And then, like you're saying, they had Modelo, they had all these people putting out to go vote and stuff. So it's kind of like the other way around now. And then now he's off Twitter and all this stuff, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You think
they banned him. Yeah, and you know what? The
do you
media...
think they kind of beat him at his own game, you think?
It's because they all joined forces together, right? The media, the establishment, DC. Well, the establishment is DC. Wall Street, Hollywood. All these people, they joined forces to pretty much make a point. And you know what? These people think that they've won. And they will do everything in their power to make sure that nobody like Trump ever gets to office.
A little bit on that. I mean, it kind of goes like be united for a right cause, because we're the United States of America. But I mean, the problem is when you're united against like a cause. I mean, I guess we could say it's bad, for them it's good, you know. But I mean, you know, being for the thing that's right, I think.
Well, like a lot of those people, or like a lot of those like big companies and stuff, like how they used to say like go vote and stuff like that, like back like last year when the elections were happening. Now it's everything's like go get your vaccine, go get your shot, and it's like how you were saying, like instead of like them like pushing like trying to push this like what they want, they should be pushing what's like right for the country, which should be like go choose what you want to do, like
For the average human, because they're in the seat right now. What's gonna happen? Just give it 5 years. You're not in that seat no more. You're that other person that they're gonna be twisting your arm, and you better go do this and this, because when you were there, you set those. And then with a lot of things like that, I like to see most of the politicians are older. But a lot of when the United States got founded, there were a lot of younger people. What's your kind of take? Because I mean, you're a younger guy coming in, and you're kind of. I'm pretty sure these like older guys or gals too. They don't like the young guy. Like, oh, this guy just thinks he's gonna come cruise through this. They don't like that.
or people who've been in it for a while, they're like, you know what, you should start small instead and not like go big right away, like.
That's right. And you know what? That mentality right there that those people have is exactly why we're in the problem we are now. Because you said it yourself. When our country was founded during the American Revolution, these people were in their late 20s, mid 20s, early 30s. Okay? They risked it all. They risked their lives. They risked their fortunes. They risked their freedoms to overthrow and succeed from that tyrannical government of what was then the monarchy of England. Right? They said enough is enough. And look, I understand back then the age gap, what is it called? The life expectancy back then wasn't as high, yes. But these people were still young. They took a chance, they saw an opportunity, they took it. And yes, they were met with some backlash. There was those what I call loyalists, to the king, to the monarchy, to the government, who were hesitant. But these people stood up. And you know what? Our lives aren't just measured in years. They're measured in the lives of people we touch around us. And these people, in fact, were influential. They did, they fought hard. They had the passion for it, And like I said, these older people, they lost their way. And they tell their experience, but what people forget is that a lot of times it's bad experience.
I was gonna tell you that, like, it kind of is like, I forgot exactly how the saying goes, but it's like, the old people have the wisdom, the young people have innovation, and then the people in the middle are the ones that experience it. It's kind of like a circle that kind of goes around, that loops. And then, like you were saying, the old people are talking about their experiences, and most of them are bad.
Exactly.
Of them. Not all of them, but most of them, they're bad.
Well, look, right now in our country, right, a lot of these people, what I like to call is they're stuck in 1980. They think what worked then works now. Especially with the GOP. As Republican, the Republican side hasn't evolved, hasn't, accustomed and adjusted to the modern time, which is why we're losing, especially here in Colorado. The Democrats, they're smart. They have a plan for everything, and they modify themselves and they adjust. In a business world, right? Either you can be a mechanistic structure or organic, where you change, where you are able to adapt. And that's what the Republicans have failed.
I think that's the key word, right? Adapt.
That's the key word, because that's what the Democratic Party has done like over the last few years. Like there's like new issues coming up, and like low level they adapt to what it is and what they need to be doing.
And they welcome all kinds of diversity. Oh God, they tout diversity all the time, right? They got young people, they got black people, they got LGBT people, they got Muslim people. They have it all. And you know what? That's why they call Republicans racist, because there's that lack of diversity on our side.
Is that a bad thing or a good thing, or what?
I'm not saying diversity is all. I'm not. But it does help when you're able to appeal to different demographic groups, right? Look, are you going to listen to somebody who's in their 60s or 70s, who's white? Or would you listen to somebody in my age group who, you've known me since we were kids. Would you feel comfortable listening to somebody like me? Ask yourself that.
You can kind of relation to people.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We don't relate to it, and we always run the same message. We always run the same candidate, and we expect different results, and we lose. In Colorado, we're losing big time. That's why we've had the Democrats pretty much take control of every single big seat since the 1930s here in Colorado. And we have to ask ourselves, Why are we continuing the same traction? Why aren't we doing something new? What can we do better? What can we do different that's effective?
It's like you make a mistake once, all right, you messed up. You keep doing that whole same thing again. That's a decision.
It's insanity.
You know it's not exactly. You know it's gonna happen. You know the outcome.
But they're just too optimistic.
It's easier. Just keep eating donuts every day. Don't eat healthy. Don't work out. You know what's gonna happen.
Exactly.
It's like maybe an easier comparison for people to kind of like see the bigger picture. But it's like.
And they don't, the like I said. And this is something that ever since I've been involved in politics since 2016, and even at the local county GOPs and other people, I've observed that. I was a volunteer for these people. I volunteered for campaigns and, knocking on doors and phone calls and just going to meetings and meeting people. And it's always the same. It is. And, that's from something that I've observed is, I'm not trying to say diversity is everything, but it helps. It does. And, where's the Republicans with the Hispanic group, especially in Colorado? How many Hispanics believe in the principles of what Republicans believe in? Set aside policy. You look at principles, right?
I comment on that. Like, how many people, not just Hispanics, how many people actually know, like, the principles of, like,
know what's actually going on?
Yeah. Like you know what I mean?
Not very many, because we don't talk about principles. We talk about partisan fights. We talk about politics, and whatever the issues are, we talk about them. But you forget what is the principle of every single policy of immigration, of healthcare, of education, of our economy.
That's something I think is
exactly
maybe should be brought up, or maybe we're failing in,
Exactly. It's principles. And you talk about the principles, especially with the Hispanic community, like they're probably like the best hardworking people that we know of. I mean, these people will literally work when it's hot, when it's cold, when it's day, when it's night. They'll work 6 hours, they'll work 23 hours. They work. They do.
So on that, you say Democrats more, they have more diversity and stuff. Do you think that's why more Hispanic, not all of it, don't fucking start quoting, but why most of them are Democrat, because they see more diversity on that side than this side?
Yeah, and you know what? The biggest thing that I'm getting from the Hispanic community when I talk about the Republican Party is their exact words is, we don't feel welcome. And they're Republicans. We do not feel welcome. That's what it is. And like I said, if you have the same people trying to get their vote, their support, their vote, of course they're not going to, because they say, it's always a bunch of BS. You guys say the same thing over and over again. Nothing changes, especially with immigration. That's one of the biggest things with the Hispanic community, right? What we have to highlight, and this is what I'm highlighting as my own individual Republicanism, is we're pro-immigration. We want people to come here, but we want people to come here the right way. We want a big, beautiful door, when they come in. But I don't think it's fair for people who want to do it the right way, who are doing it the right way, and they're waiting years. And when you have people crossing the border, and I can just tell you this, it's not Mexicans, it's not. These people from Haiti, from Kenya, all these places use that border because they know it's easy to go through. They can cut. Is that not fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. They hear illegal immigrants, first thing right in their mind is Mexicans, Hispanics.
Just because they're right next door.
Just because they're the closest one, or it's the easiest for one people to know. There's a lot of Chinese people, Japanese, from Haiti, India, from everywhere.
Exactly.
But the first thing they think immigrants, it's just the Hispanics and immigrants. No. There's people even from South America, further down,
from Brazil and
or
Portugal.
even Africa, everywhere.
Those caravans. I mean, you've seen the caravans that, with Joe Biden. He literally told these people to come. And he wants to say that he doesn't know what's coming in. He told these people to come. I mean, you can see or search for yourself. When he raised his hand and said, who would have a plan to offer health care to illegal immigrants? He was one of them. When he told people, come, we'll take care of you. He's flat out said in the debates, come. Of course that's going to incentivize people. You have people with Biden shirts telling him, please let us in. And can you imagine Kamala Harris, right? Vice president, supposedly a champion for women, but she's not a champion for women in the Middle East who are being persecuted right now in Afghanistan. Where's the champion for women? She literally is hiding her job. She had one job, and that was the border. And what her thing is we're going to try to discover the root cause of illegal immigration, why they're coming here. She said the same thing Trump did. Do not come or you will be turned away. But they're praising her as someone that's brave. But if Trump said that, oh my God, he's a white supremacist.
Why do you think they do? Why do you think that's happening? Like that they see it different?
Because she's a woman and
diversity?
because she is not white.
And because she's not Trump.
No, I think it's because she's a woman and because she's of color.
But then on the I have devil's advocate for you can say for the people the women in what did you say
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, you could argue that they're not in the United States.
Right.
Right?
But we created that mess, that vacuum. We did. And you know what? There's people that are people, Americans, that are still there. They are. You know, have you heard the phone calls coming out of Afghanistan of women terrified of them? Literally, every time they hear a car, they think it's one of the Taliban and they're going to break into their house and just kill them. And them imploring for President Biden to help them.
I've seen some of the videos of like airplanes leaving and then the people just like hanging onto the wings for dear life and then just like watching people fall.
Are those like just to get in contact? Are those Americans doing that?
Not all of them were.
Not all of them were. So
they
it's
were just regular people.
You can from Afghanistan, right?
Exactly.
So you think about it. Do you want them to take care of? It sounds kind of fucked up. But do you want them to take care of us first or them first?
It should be.
If they put a fucking decision, them first or you or you know.
It should be our people first. America first doesn't mean America only. It doesn't. I'm not saying that we should just pretty much focus on ourselves. We are a generous country, but we give a lot of money and support elsewhere when we have homelessness people here, where we have, you know, crime up the roof.
So there you go. Because I don't know if you know, like the military, they have stuff all over the world.
Oh,
they
yeah.
have a lot of stuff.
They have bases everywhere.
They have bases everywhere. So do you think it'd be better? I mean, they pulled it out of Afghanistan. It wasn't that great, but instead of use that money for like you said, there's a lot of homelessness here.
Yeah, I mean, where the hell are our allies? I mean, come on now. I mean, we have these alliances, right? The EU and, you know, have Great Britain pulling out, right? The Brexit. And you have places like, you know, the Middle East, you know, like Israel, right? I love Israel. But where are our allies helping us in these situations? Why is it us? We're not the world's policemen. We're not. And we're giving them money. And that's why they hated Trump, is because he told them you have to pay your fair share, and they got pissed off. What's wrong with that? We're not the world's piggy bank. We're a generous country, but you know what? It's not the government's to give. It's our money that they steal from us.
And it's back what you said. It's better to be feared than loved, right? Like, yeah, they love you because you're being generous, but then it's like when your mom, she tells you to clean your room, you get pissed. Kind of goes back to that, right?
But you know the consequences if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
And right now with this administration, they know that there's no consequences.
Exactly. There you go.
They can do whatever the hell they want. China's exercising their power. They're increasing their hypersonic and AI technology. Where is our innovation, which ties back to it, to help develop nuclear arsenal? I'm not saying to use it, but we need to show our enemies that we are using peace or strength through peace, or peace through strength. Peace through strength. We're exercising our military power, but our innovation with AI, with hypersonic missiles, and with other weaponry to compete with them. Because you know what? Our military is being depleted. It's going to be depleted even more because we have outdated equipment, and you have the Taliban right now reverse engineering the stuff we left in Afghanistan. How many millions, if not billions of dollars we have of equipment there that they're using?
Mm-hmm. On a lot of that, you're talking about military, AI, do all this. Where does that money come from?
It comes from us.
Because I don't know. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it. How the wars got founded on taxes, right? It was only supposed to cover the tax, just enough taxes to cover the expenses of the war, and taxes ended up staying here, and now they're pretty much like everywhere. Like we're saying, like we left all this stuff hanging. So was this money, you think, from taxes that were that people paid 10 years ago? You know, that they bought all the equipment that they left in Afghanistan now, or what do you think?
I mean, you said so yourself. The income tax was only meant to be temporary, and that was during the Civil War to help fund it. And it was only supposed to be for about 10, 11 years. And what you saw was in the beginning of the early 1900s, it became permanent.
When was the Civil War?
The Civil War is from about 1860 to 1865.
150 years ago, and it's still here.
It's still here. And you know why? Because government is expanding. They're getting bigger. They want more control. They want more intervention because they believe that government knows best. They know better than you do. They know better than you and your family. They know better than we do, than I do. Because they don't trust us to make decisions and our choices for ourselves. Because they think that they know best and that we need to be coddled the entire way. That we need to be, our hand needs to be held by them the entire way.
And do you think they know best?
No, they don't.
We go back to it. You're saying like the government thinks this and this, and then you go back into it. What do you get elected for this? What would be your takes on focusing on to change?
Well, for starters, we got to eliminate these unnecessary programs. Because look, we have over 17 programs for homelessness. We have all these programs to figure out what's going on with crime and cost of living, et cetera, et cetera. These are programs that were meant to be temporary, but they become permanent. Why? Because of our agencies. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say Congress can delegate regulatory power or the power to make laws to other agencies or entities, right?
This just keeps rising and everything, you know.
Exactly.
So
and it's a waste of money.
Where's that money going?
You know, I want to start. Congress has the sole power to do that. These agencies and programs are unconstitutional. They are. Because look, if they really want to come down to it, they should amend the Constitution to where it allows Congress to give them power to do so in order for them to actually be legitimate. But they're illegitimate. They are. And Congress's job is to oversight and to make these laws. What they're doing is, we're not the experts. We're going to delegate to these agencies because they know best. And what are they? They're bureaucrats.
The third party kind of, or how's that?
It's not like a third party, but it's more like a separate entity, but only worse because these people, they're unelected, folks. They're unelected. And they're permanent positions. They don't have to worry about getting re-election every 2 years, every 6 years, every 4 years. No, they stay there forever. And most times they're friends of these people. They're connected. They're well-funded. And that's why DC is a cesspool. Because it's their friends who have these regulatory control and authority to do so. And where's Congress? You know, Congress, that's their job. It's not these agencies. We got to get rid of these programs. We got to cut these and eliminate these agencies that are illegitimate. And we got to give the power back to where it belongs, and that's Congress. If these people really want to do what they're doing right now, amend the Constitution. But they're not.
So to take a step back, a little earlier we're talking about like how the Democratic Party is more like forward thinking and like more diverse and everything, and like the Republican Party is viewed more as like just a bunch of like white people, pretty much.
White racist people.
White racist people, yeah. Well, why did you decide to run as like a Republican instead of as like a Democrat? Was it because of, like more of like your values and stuff? Because like as like a Hispanic, it'd be probably a little easier to get some more support like with the Democratic Party instead of with Republicans who are just viewed as more like white racist people supposedly.
I grew up in a liberal household. I grew up thinking that Republicans were in fact rich old white men who were racist. I did. And then I saw 2008 when President Obama was elected, and I had hope. I had hope that things were going to be changed and things were going to go for the better. And then it wasn't until his re-election in 2012 where I thought he was just more of the same. He was just another one of them. He was. And the number one reason why I became a Republican is because of Obama. My number one reason was because of him. And frankly, I didn't like Mitt Romney. I was 1 month away from voting in the 2012 election because of my birthday's on Christmas and the election's in November. But I would have voted for Obama. I would have. Because Mitt Romney was a horrible candidate. So was John McCain. But, you know, and I'm really glad that I say that and I stick to that because you look at what Mitt Romney's doing right now and he's horrible. He is, you know. He's the one saying that your liberties affect my health. But I looked at, for me, to think for myself. Push away from the noise, okay? What do I believe in? What do I think is morally right? The principles of it. And I found that my values and principles aligned closer, not in total alignment, but closer to that of the Republican Party, where we stand for limited government, freedom, personal responsibility, individual choice, and capitalism.
What do you think about all that people that say they're Republican, but they're just like, you know, they're way, you know, out of control, you know, like, oh no, you know, kind of what I mean?
I mean, we have those in Congress right now. We have those who vote with Democrats to continue to push spending, right? And it's funny because most of them, they're going to be dead by the time that the effects of this uncontrollable spending happen. They're going to be dead. I mean, think about it. The people right now making our laws are born in 1940s. Why are we allowing for those people making these laws for us, right? And I'm not discriminating against older people. I'm not. But where's the equal, diverse representation of the people of this country to be truly reflective of how the population plays out?
So what age do you think would be good? Like, do you think there should be a cap? Like, hey, you're older than this. Like,
Your cutoff date, like
cut off. Like, hey, sorry. Like,
No,
step
but
down now.
No, but that's why there's term limits, and that's why we should push for term limits.
But then there can be someone in a term that's 70 years old. You know what I mean?
What do you
And
mean,
they-
7 years old?
70 years old.
Okay.
That's 70, but they're in there for, say, for 4 years, 2 years, whatever. Do you think it should be more for, like, I guess you're kind of, like, narrowing it down for people, like, but it's, like, to be maybe, like, around the 40-year-old, because when stuff happens, they'll be, like, 50, 60, you know, and so they can actually live it. If you're 70, something happened, like, you know.
No. And the reason is because I know that there are genuinely good, kind-hearted, abled people who are 70 years old who are healthy. Donald Trump's 74, 75. He's born 1946. Okay? He's in his 70s. Look how healthy he is. There are people of all age groups who do generally care about this country, care about the people, who are like us, right? I'm not trying to discriminate against generational or age, but there are good people, older people that I know would do well in these positions, right?
But then kind of like, to go back to, you kind of said, like, they'd be dead by the time stuff goes through, so...
For
You know what I
spending,
mean?
for spending. It's funny because a lot of these people like to tout about their spending and, we're going to just lower taxes and regulation. The Republicans, for the most part, they call themselves fiscally conservative. They're not. They're not. You know why? Because they continue to increase spending without cutting it. You can't talk about the debt without cutting spending, and you have to cut it across the board. Right? There has to be reform. Where are these Republicans who are supposedly fiscally conservative saying, no, we got to stop with this spending. We got to cut it. We got to balance the budget. We got to stop running these deficits. If you guys had your businesses and you were running deficits every single quarter, would you survive?
No.
It would have
Banks have to balance their books. Corporations have to balance their books. Small businesses have to balance their books. Why doesn't our government do it? Why?
Or do maybe they have somebody that's, like, in charge of that area that doesn't know what's going on?
A lot of these people don't have a clue. And what I mean by that is these bills that they pass, think about it, they're thousands of pages long. Do you really think that they read all of that?
No.
Do they really?
You don't even read the thing when you download Facebook onto your phone.
Or
It
the
says
terms and conditions.
terms and conditions.
Exactly.
Boom, accept. You think, and that's like a page. You think they're gonna go through 1,000?
No, they're not.
No,
And that's
no.
why they sneak crap in there.
You know, they
right?
should
It's
be
called
going through
porking.
it.
They'll
It
be like,
is.
well, we're gonna pass this law, and then it's gonna say in 2030 this and this can happen. You know, stuff like that. They get.
Well, was it
It's
as
implementation.
similar to the like the COVID relief bill? Like, yeah, we had like this many
Exactly.
trillions of
There you
dollars,
go.
but then like only like a small part of it was actually going to the American people, and the rest was going elsewhere.
Oh, yeah. And that's exactly what it is.
them.
But
Back to
they
them.
funneled it
Back to
themselves.
them and-
They funnel it, right? You want to hear, you hear about dark money, They funnel themselves this money back to them. Isn't that dark money? Our money, not their money. Our money that they legally steal from us every single chance they get. I mean, it's wrong. It is. And our own government's only going to get worse unless we actually stop and have people stand up for us and rise up to the occasion and actually, stand for our principles and what we want, our values. We need those people in our government.
So what's your what do you say to the person that's right now, like, on the line that doesn't even know what to think, or the young guy, or what's your message out to the people?
Nowhere in the Constitution does it say I have to have experience. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say I have to come from wealth. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say I have to wait my turn. That mentality is exactly why we are in the mess now, because we expect these people to come from the same background or have luxurious degrees, or come from certain professions. Our government is supposed to be reflective of us, of who we are, not of what we assume it should be, right? The status quo, the culture of it. Ask yourselves, are you really impressed? Do you approve of the people that you vote for? Do you really know these people? Do they know you? Do you have a relationship with them? No? And that's where I want to come in, because as a politician, it's not about just working about the next election. I want to work for you. I want to fight for you. represent you, your friends, your family, your neighbors. That's what it's about. Set aside the party, set aside the politics, and set aside the profit, because it's country over party, people over profit, and policy over politics. You know, as a young person, I have a lot of energy, but I know I'm able and capable of getting the job done. And I know that I have our best interests at heart. And that's what we need. We need outsiders, people who will not sell us out, people who will not give in to special interests or lobbyists, people who are not there to get rich, people who generally want to make this country better. Set aside the age. Look at the person and what they have to offer. Get to know them. Get to know me. And see that I'm not different than any of you. I'm like you. And because of that reason, I know that I can work for you. And know that I will never give in, never give up. And I'm always going to fight like hell for you. And our families and our freedom, our country and our future.
That's awesome. For people to still have more questions, where could people find you? Give us your website, your social medias.
So my website is www.ryanforco.com, RYANFORCO.com. I have a Facebook page. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. Email me, info@ryanforco.com. I got a P.O. box as well. Just look at the website, look at my 3-pillar platform, and look at my 5 pledges, because one of them is I pledge, if elected, that I will term limit myself. I will serve no more than 4 terms, because I think 4 terms is enough. So you guys see that I'm not there to have a public life. I'm there to do a public service. I'm not there to get rich. I'm not there to stay there forever. And I want to give myself a time frame of doing what I said I would do and get out. Like I said, I don't want to be part of the swamp, which I call the sewer. And I think you guys know why I call it a sewer. Mm-hmm. Is I want to actually do what I'm saying I'm going to do and perform it and prove to you all that I'm a different kind of politician.
What are your other pillars?
So I call it economic empowerment, where we empower not only individuals to go out and thrive and succeed and innovate and create new wealth, but also our small business, stand with small businesses, because it's the spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation. Our agriculture, because our agriculture is under attack in the name of climate change. And say what you will about climate change, we could address it, right? Renewable energy. It's good. It's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. But that also leads into the third one, which is energy independence. We need to grow that and allow the free markets to actually produce what we need and transition over. You don't need to force oil and gas to stop. They'll do the transition on their own. Education, right? School choice, pushing back against critical race theory, because it's literally keeping racism on a lifeline. And it's showing our kids that because we're of color, that we're always going to be indifferent and inferior to white people, and that we're just not good enough. And I think that's wrong. And you know what it is? It's polite racism. That's what it is. Common Core, get rid of it. Let states handle it. Our children are performing poorly. Financial literacy and education. How many people know about their credit? And lastly, healthcare. Because healthcare is very personal to me. I have a mom who has diabetes and asthma, and I see that she is wasted away of all the Medicaid. She's wasting away from all the medicine they give her. And Big Pharma has their foot in the door, and they have our politicians by the balls, because they fund them, and they pretty much make their money off of treatments, not cures. Let's let the free markets through innovation. Let's find cures for cancer. Let's find cures for diabetes and asthma and other lying conditions. Let's have a free market approach where instead of you for your insurance, why do we only have to insure our spouses or children? Why can't we insure our mothers, our father, our sisters, our brothers, our uncles, our nieces, our nephews? Why is it just them? Why don't we eliminate state lines and actually have more competition to have the premiums down? Why are we depending on China for our medical drugs? Why don't we produce it here? Health savings accounts. Why don't we incentivize people to have health savings accounts so that way they can actually afford, when they need treatments, to go see what they need without having to worry about the cost of it? Why? If these progressives like Bernie Sanders and AOC are talking about healthcare all the time, these people have a plan for everything. Where's the Republican plan for healthcare to show that we have a plan for everything? To actually prove to people, hey, it's worth a shot. Give us a shot. Do you remember Obamacare is a total disaster. Not a single Republican voted for it, but they pushed it through reconciliation, which is what they're doing right now with this whole 1.5. It's not 3.5 trillion anymore. It's 1.5 trillion. That's what they're doing. And it has to stop. Healthcare is a big thing right now for people, not only just women, but people in general. Where's a free market approach for that? So those are my 3 pillars for my campaign: is the economy, our healthcare and our education.
Awesome, man. I love it. I like that. Why? I mean, for everybody that's out there actually hearing this, just question everything you're seeing on the news, on social media. Just question everything. Make your own research. Do your own research and actually see what's going on out there. If you guys hear this, you guys have questions, you guys have his stuff, email him. Pretty sure he'll get back to you pretty soon.
Check his website out. Check him out on social media. He's always posting up new stuff constantly.
We're having a kickoff event, so the people who live in District 8, I invite you to check the website and constantly check there for our kickoff event, which we'll have next month. And it'll be a blast. Like I said, I want to work for you guys.
Yeah, stay posted for his events. Stay posted for our future stuff, and subscribe, follow us, check us out. Monico, Erick, and Ryan, thanks for being on, man. It was awesome.
It's a pleasure.
having
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated.